Hey guys, if you're looking for the Bonafide P127, here it is. I'm going to walk you through, give you my review, give you my thoughts in case you're looking to get yourself into a pedal drive kayak. And in case you're interested, I paid for this with my own cash. I'm not sponsored, so I'm not influenced in any way. This is the real deal review. So the P127 is actually Bonafide's first pedal drive kayak. You see, Bonafide is owned by Big Adventures, which owns Hurricane Kayaks and Liquid Logic, and Native, which I'm very familiar with because as many of you who follow the channel, I own a Native Slayer Propel 10 as well, but I wanted to move over to Bonafide because I heard great things about how they're built and how they're built tough. So let me walk you through from bow to stern, tell you what I like, what I don't like. All right, first let's start off with a Propel drive. Guys, just don't think because this is Bonafide's first pedal drive kayak that this pedal drive motor is kind of new to the market. This Propel drive has been on the market since 2008 through the Native models, and I gotta tell you what, I absolutely love this thing. It is, in my opinion, bulletproof. One of the reasons I love this thing is because I can work on it myself. I don't need to have to take it again and get specially serviced. With a few specialized tools, you can take apart this upper transmission, this lower transmission, replace the shear pin, grease it yourself. In fact, I got a 6-part video series on how to do that. I'll put that in the link below. But at the end of the day, if you keep this thing greased around once every 75 days, according to Native, this guy is going to last you for a very long time. So what I like about the 701 series, and I'm not sure when they started doing this, but on my old models, on the propeller right here, between the propeller and the aluminum casing used to be a gap. And a lot of times you have to go buy a 3D printed kind of weed guard to stick in there, but now you have an aluminum weed guard, so great add Bonafide. So the 701 has a 10-to-1 gear ratio and comes with a 5-year warranty, 5 years against manufacturer defects, and 2 years top to bottom. The P127 comes in 4 different colors, comes in Venom, you got Steel, you got Top Gun Gray, and you got what you're looking at right here, which is camo. The length of this bad boy is 12 foot 7 inches, that's why it's called the P127. When it comes to kayaks, when you see a number at the end of it, that's going to be the length. So my Native Slayer Propel 10 is 10 foot. My P127 is 12 foot 7 inches. So gives you an idea if you're out there looking at kayaks. So the width of the kayak is 34 inches wide, and with the Propel drive and the seat, fully fitted weight is 120 pounds. Actually, I had to have my wife come out here to help me pick it up because it was just like heavy, long, dead weight. All right, so let me walk you from bow to stern and tell you what I like and what I don't like about it. I know I kind of cheated because I started with the motor drive first because I love it so much. All right, let's go. So what we have on the front here are fat grip bow handles. I don't know if you guys can see this, but when I lift up a little bit, it gives a bit. So maybe I just need to tighten that up, but I'm not super crazy about when I lift that up, how this back here kind of moves back and forth, but I might just need to get up there and tighten that screw. I'm not sure if you can see it. So when I was looking at this, like, oh man, I wish they would have put like foam on here like they do for the Native Slayer Propel 10s. This feels really good whenever you have to carry this for a long time. So I was looking at it and there wasn't any around the top. When you look on the bottom here, there is, I wouldn't say it's foam, it feels like rubber right here. So maybe it helps not slip with the bottom of your fingers. Oh, look at that, I can pull it out. It is rubber, that's how it sticks up in there. So I wish that was foam, not rubber. I'm gonna stick that back up in there, and it's not going anywhere because there's a screw hole right there, so I just need to shove that back up in there. All right, next up we have our bow mount. Chad Hoover did a really great video on this, on whether or not you should mount a motor on the front of your P127, but Sydney did such a good job on it and had some good thoughts on it. I'm gonna throw that video in the description below and you can check that out for yourself. Here's the thing, guys, I have no desire really to run a motor off the front of my P127. That's why I bought a pedal drive kayak. I love the pedal drive control, and to be honest, if I get a motor, I lose out on the exercise I get through pedaling my yak, which is 350 calories an hour, baby. Woo! All right, next we're gonna talk about something that's probably one of my least favorite things on the P127, which are these rod tip holders. I know these have come over from, I think, the Slayer Max. And though they look kind of cool aesthetically, I just don't like them for a couple different reasons. One, whenever you line up your rod from the kind of quick draw that they have on the seat, which I'll show you in just a moment, what you end up having to do, I believe the design should have been cut in from the top, not cut in from the bottom, to really make that a whole lot easier. Two, if you put your finger along here, which I'm doing right now, it's kind of rough whenever they laser cut this thermoform. Now, if you're not paying attention, when you put that line into here, that is going to rub against your line potentially and compromise your line. So I guess you can kind of sand that down, but it's pretty rough all around the edges. So I'm not a big fan of it. I think they look kind of cool, but at the end of the day, I really never use rod stagers, and so it's not something that was a deal breaker for me. All right, so this is what I was talking about here. If you're not paying attention when you put your rods in here, if the line was on it, these are kind of winterized right now, but the line would be rubbing against the top here, and that's not what you want. You don't want line on sharp thermoform. And so you'd have to put that in perfectly like this every single time. All right, I know there's 2 more reasons I didn't like these things, because if you do have a rod in here all the way, and if you have anything running on your aluminum gear track, this is going to get in the way. So you would have to run a pretty minimalist rig in order to use your rod stagers. And as you can see here, if I have my rod all the way up into the rod tip holders, this is where my bait casting reel sits. And so you have to pull that. I guess you can make it work by pulling it back. And this is kind of how these guys work. At the end of the day, these are kind of worthless to me because I run all of my 6 rods off a kayak crate in the back with rod holders, so we'll get to that in a bit. All right, so to be honest, I would have done one of 3 things here when it comes to this. Either removed it and reduced the price of the Bonafide, removed it and replaced it with some type of gear track so I can run a GoPro from the front of my kayak. Or 3, what I really wish they would have done is move this completely, and the money they would have saved on that, gone back here to the handle and made this whole setup aluminum versus plastic, because I know that over time this starts to get really loose and wonky. This looks a little bit better than a Native Slayer Propel 10 that I have, but man, if this was aluminum, this would be a sick fishing kayak. All right, next on the hatch here, and this thing's pretty tough as well, you got the double header latches and hinges. So when you open this bad boy up, that kind of opens up here, and then you get the drop-in bow storage, which I think you found on the SS 127s, and these things are solid. So as you can see here, it's got a weird design, and this is because when you open this up, this is your, and we'll get to this later in the video, this is where your transducer mounts underneath your kayak, but you can fit all kinds of stuff down in there as well. And I think the reason why this kind of goes up, because there's nothing down here that would cause it to do that. This is probably because if you run a battery, if you do run a motor, you want that to kind of sit in there flat. So I think they just stepped this up because of that. So another thing you can do here is if you take this bow storage out, you can actually run poles, 2 or 3 poles down each side of the pontoons down here, and I've actually even seen power poles that will fit in here. So if you're going on a trip, need some extra storage, you can pull this guy out and stick that stuff down in here. So solid design that they made that kind of accessible to fishing poles, and so pretty neat. And also you can run your wires all the way to the back of your kayak if you want to kind of offset. If you do put a motor up here and you want to counterbalance your kayak so you don't have a heavy motor in your battery here, you can put your heavy motor up here, run the lines all the way back to the pontoons of the P127 and run a battery from back here. You know, one of the things I like about this thermoformed hatch is that if you wanted to, I could actually put a gear track on here so I don't have to drill into my fishing kayak and then run a camera mount from there and just easily run the lines under here to power it with the battery. So that's sweet. Also, what you notice here is you can run your battery and your line down through this little insert, solid Bonafide, I love it, into this mini scupper that if you pull out, you can run your wires down to the transducer that I showed you. There's a transducer plate down there that kind of keeps that protected underneath. So great design there, makes it nice and clean so you don't have extra wires. I used to have to run a Sidekick and the wires were out here in my way and the Sidekick was up over the side of the kayak. So this is nice and tight and clean, which I really like. All right, so next what we have is kind of our Thwart bar seat here, and as you can see, if you stick it in there, being that these are rotomolded, this one actually fits in there pretty nice. But sometimes you're gonna have a little gap there, and so there's all kinds of things you can do to make that gap go away, especially if this is moving on you, but this sits in pretty nice. It's not moving around at all. And what I really love about this design are these finger pull latches that will tighten these in, so if you were to roll your kayak for whatever reason, your very expensive Propel drive is not gonna go to the bottom of the lake. So this is how this works. You take off that lid, you drop your pedal drive down, it seats in there nicely, and if you want to tighten that in, boom, so that's not going to come up. So that's pretty sweet. However, if you're fishing shallow, a lot of times what I'll do, since I might hit something, or if I'm fishing in a lot of standing timber, I will actually leave this pulled back and this off. So if I hit something, this will just pop up like this instead of taking the full brunt of my boat. So keep that in mind. That's something that you do. Oh, I almost forgot to mention this. On the top of your Propel mount, this is a 1/4 20, I believe, threaded female, where you could put all kinds of ram mounts. What I like to do is I put a ram mount phone holder, so my phone is constantly right in front of me when I'm sitting on my seat. So if you're interested in that, I will throw that link down in the description below. Another thing about the pedal drive system is whenever you lift this out, say if you get a bunch of weeds and stuff, you need to clean it, or you're simply pulling it in for the day, you know, what if the propeller is this way underneath the water? You're gonna have to reach your hand down there and straighten it out. No, you don't, because this is a prop indexer. Essentially, you push this down, move your pedal forward, you hear it click, and then that's when you can lift it up because it was indexed on that prop indexer, and you are good to go. All right, next let's take a look at the scupper plugs here. You know, no big deal for me. The only thing is sometimes I like to fish barefoot, and so having this little knob right here sticking up is going to drive me crazy. So technically what I could do, go in there and do is cut that just on these two, because that's the only two places where I'm going to be stepping on them. But it does make it a little nice. I know why they designed it that way. Simply because you can get your finger under there and pop them out. And so these are pretty solid. I've heard that since this deck is a little lower, that if you like to fish without scupper plugs, you are likely, if you're heavier, I'm a $180, and so this is not going to fill with water. But I heard if you're a heavier set dude or a girl, then that weight is going to make water come up through your scuppers if you like fishing without scupper plugs. So I 100% of the time always fish with scupper plugs in because I like a dry boat. So that's just wasn't a big deal to me. All right, let's go to this guy right here. It's going to be your rudder control. Basically, lift that out, drop it, and whenever you do that, this wire back here is going to drop your rudder, and it goes left and right as you steer, and then you can pull it back out to get it out of the way. So that's what makes this thing go up and down as you pull this forward and backwards, forward and backwards. Now, I can already tell you right now, this right here, that drives me crazy. I don't know about you guys, but as a kayak angler, I like everything nice and tidy. And so what I really wish they would have done is had a place for this to go. Like, the design would be sweet if this stuck in here somewhere. Or so basically what I'm gonna have to do, since they didn't do that, I'm gonna put a little piece of Velcro here, right here. So this isn't dangling around everywhere. It'll just stick nicely right there and kind of be nice and tidy and clean. One of the things I notice is that whenever I let this go, it's kind of a slow fall. I imagine water to be even slower. So I know that there's a way to adjust the spring. This is spring loaded back here. So I might have to either figure out a way to adjust the spring so it falls a little bit faster. But at the end of the day, I might not spend a lot of time on that because I was talking to Chad and he said he is working on a solution, kind of an upgrade to this. So go ahead and stay tuned. If you're wondering what that is, there'll probably be a video coming in the months to come. All right, so next let's talk about the Bonafide Seat. I like the seat. It looks a lot similar to my, nope, don't have my seat on that. Looks really similar to the Native Slayer Propel 10. Essentially, you're gonna have your thumb screws here. It's gonna be adjustable to move forward and backwards. The only thing I think that is bizarre to me is that back here, you can't thumb screw these in. So it could be way over here, way over here. I think that's weird to me. And guys, Bonafide, what in the world is this for? These are two gear tracks that don't attach anything to them. And so it makes no sense why that's there. Maybe it's an aftermarket or an upgrade. It's coming down the line. Hopefully an adjustable seat because I don't like it this low. I already know I'm gonna want to raise the seat up a bit. I always do. It's just the way I like to fish. I don't like to drop in really hard on my seat because I'm up and down all the time. So I'm kind of glad they put these here because I'm gonna need something to raise up the back as I raise up the front. So I'm working with my man over at 3D Yak on Facebook, and I'm getting him some dimensions. And so if you're interested in seat risers as well, those are probably going to be coming in the next month or two. Although I know the seat's going to be super comfortable, I believe Bonafide missed an opportunity to shine here with only making adjustable going back and forth and with the seat going back. A lot of other designs and even some of the upgrades from some of their other kayaks, not the P127, is where the seat can be adjusted and come up and go back down. But that is not for the P127. So this is the seat that you're stuck with now, unless you do some DIY modifications after you buy it. All right, the next thing is I really don't like either, and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do about it yet. I will come up with a solution that on my Native Slayer Propel 10, this is where the seat sat, and I had a Craftsman's VersaStack underneath the seat. So anytime I won something, I just kind of reached under the seat, pulled it out, and I had a bunch of terminal tackle, some lures I'm going to use from the day. It was freaking awesome. However, if you try to fit this under the seat here, it sticks out way too far, and it can't be used because this is going to hit, I guess the top one could, but that's it. And this is where my feet go. Because if you take this out, look under here, the design is weird. Look at that. So it comes in and then curves in, so I can't really stick a whole lot under there. Then it goes up and you got this weird design here, I'm not sure why. You might be able to put a couple boxes down here, but you have to find a way to keep it from sliding out all the time. And so I really need to figure out a way to modify something like this. For this, I will come up with it. So if you're interested in that solution, go hit that sub and bell, and I will have a solution in the next couple of months, but still thinking on that one. But it's really weird. I don't know why they did that. I mean, it's beefy. However, I really like under the seat storage, and it's just not available with something I already loved, which is this guy. So that's gonna stay over here. Whoever is my buddy that day, kayak with me, is gonna have access to that. Now, real quick, I did see that Bonafide sold something that was essentially just like a bag here The problem is it'd be sitting in the water, and it's just basically a piece of elastic that went from here to here that you can pull back and stick some of your boxes in, but that's not what I'm looking for. All right, so let's talk about the steering handle right there. But first, let me take you over here, because what that used to be like is that the steering handle, this is for the Native, look at that, after a while that's what it does. It was right down on the plastic base, and as you can see, I don't know if you can see that, it just kind of sat there the whole time and hit my screws. Well, I like what they've done over the years is that they actually have raised their handle up. This is a lot tighter on the turn, and looks pretty sweet. Now here's the thing with this, there's a bit, albeit minor, design flaw, is that sometimes there are two, the lines that run the rudder lines back there. So I'm turning this here, you can see that turning back there, which is turning the rudder I showed you earlier. Whenever these lines go into the body of the kayak, there's two little, they kind of look like this right here. There's two of these. What happens is that these plastic, I would call them spacers, aren't in there very well, and they pop out and they make their way all the way up to this round on the inside, really limiting your ability to turn left or right. So it's an easy fix. You just got to pop this off and essentially glue these spacers to the body of the inside of the kayak. I'm not going to show you right now, but I will get in there in a subsequent video and show you how to do that, just so I'm not a mile out from where I need to load out and this thing locks up on me because I didn't go ahead and preemptively go in and fix that. So design flaw, kind of a butter. It's minor, easy to fix, so it wasn't a big deal for me. You got some pretty hard plastic carry handles here. Not a big deal. I'll get over it. If I wanted to put something wrapping around there, I could. But once again, 120-pound kayak, hard plastic handles. Hope you're not traveling too far picking this thing up. So on the far side here, as you can see, this has a nice smooth design here, and this is going to be your paddle lock. So you can stick your paddle right here, have it sit kind of on the outside of your kayak, take this piece of elastic, wrap it around that, and boom. So it's kind of nice to have there, which is kind of a redundancy because you'll see in a moment, not only do we have this here, but back here we have, it's kind of yak attack attachment where there's two of them on both sides on these gear tracks. And what these are for is to take your kayak paddles, break them in half and have them sitting out the back. One half over here and one half over here, which I'm not sure what good they do. I mean, these are like emergency paddles, but a lot of times if I need my paddle whenever I am using my pedal drive, is because I need it really quickly because I'm going to get myself into trouble, or I need to get myself out of trouble really fast. And if I have to turn around and go back here and grab these paddles and put it together, well, guess what? I'm already into the trouble I was needing to avoid. So having a full-length paddle just makes sense to me, and so I'll be using this. We'll probably be taking this off, maybe trying to sell it, because I definitely don't need this. All right, moving back a little bit. As you can see here, there are rotomolded kind of rod holders. You got two on both sides. It's kind of dark, but these are gonna pull out at an angle. The reality is I never, ever use these, mostly because I love having my rod holders up here on my gear track. I use Yak Attack Pro and Mega rod holders. One right here, one right here. You can easily kind of lock and load those, take them off when you don't need them. And so those are pretty sweet. But I have seen guys kind of put DIY and shove poles down here and run their cameras off here. It'd be kind of really sturdy. So definitely something you could use that for if you wanted to. All right, you might have noticed, and this definitely does not come stock, is the Native Watercraft Sidekicks, and I wouldn't buy this boat without them, to be honest with you. And so although they don't come stock, as you can see, this is how they're going to fit on it. You're basically going to screw these into your gear track here, and this is how you're going to easily transport your fishing kayak to and from the water, especially when you don't have a boat ramp. So whenever you get in the water, you don't have to run these back to your car. You just take them, move them back, boom. And then you sit like that, both of them off the side, kind of up out of your way. Whenever you need them or pulling out, you just put them back into place and you were good to go. Now, here's the thing, these things are not cheap, but neither is the kayak. I believe the kayak runs around $3,100. This Native Sidekick is $250 addition to that. I even had them over here, the old version of the Native Slayer Sidekicks. I still have, and I absolutely love them. So this is a must buy for me because a lot of the places I actually need to transport, some guys they go to the same lake and they simply just go ahead and back their trailer up to the body of water, dump it in, and they have no need for it. But I know for me, I need it because I do a lot of adventure fishing. In the stern, kind of back here, you got a lot of storage space. I usually run a backpack here. I'll probably move my Sidekicks up a little bit. But as you can see here, there's some inserts. And these inserts are actually made for the black pack made by Yak Attack to kind of sit in there. And it's kind of nice because you ever get water back here, if you're paddling through, it always happens to me when I'm paddling through lily pads and it's kicking up water and kind of sits back here. And of course you can let that out through the scupper plugs, but what happens a lot of times, in a lot of other kayaks that I fish, is that water ends up sitting at the bottom of your milk crate or black pack or whatever it is. So this design, especially for the black packs, is to keep that pack up off, leaving about 1.5 inches of room so the water sits below it and doesn't get everything in the bottom of your black pack or milk crate completely sopping wet. Now here's the thing I don't like about it, because they're limiting you to have it right here. And so, let me show you. So if I take the one I made, the thing's pretty sweet. If you don't have one of these yet, and this is one that I made out of 2 milk crates, has 6 rod holders. But with here, I can move it forward and backwards. Maybe I want to get a battery in here. Maybe I want to get something else in here. Maybe I want to move the side kits back. If you have a black pack in there, you're going to be limited to being right here. So that's kind of one design flaw. I think they should have made this cutout kind of movable and go all the way back instead of stopping it right there. But you know what? For me, I'm not going to buy a black pack at the moment. I'm just going to continue to use the one that I built. So if you're interested in building one of those as well, I'll throw the link in the description below. All right, next what we have here is a stern access plate. I'm just going to show you what's inside. All right, as you can see in here, nothing crazy, just the lines that run your steering and your rudder control. Might be a really good place if you have an air tag or you want to etch your HIN number, your hull identification number, in case someone decides they want to take your kayak from you, to kind of hide that way back in here, up around the corner and stick it. A thief is never going to find that. So a really good place to kind of stick that if you're looking for another place to put your HIN. Stick that up under here. I always like to put my HIN 3 or 4 different places. So although the HIN is back here, this is really easy to scratch off. And so if it does get stolen, you got to be able to prove that it is in fact yours. And so having that HIN etched into your kayak at multiple different places that are not easy to find is going to help you to be able to recover this in case it gets stolen. Also, a air tag is going to help you do that as well. And so I have another video on how a bunch of different ways you can keep your fishing kayak from getting stolen and how to recover it if it does get stolen. So hit that sub and bell, and you will get that video that's coming out in the next couple weeks. All right, as you move around the back here, you'll see this little relief kind of valve. If you unscrew it, if you happen to have water inside of your kayak, you can flip your kayak to the side and drain that out. But at the end of the day, you should know why that water is in there. Maybe it was you had the hatch open or whatnot when it was raining. You shouldn't have unexplained water sitting in the bottom of the hull of your fishing kayak. So what I like about here is a lot of the water flow keeps the water out of the places you don't want it. So it's going to come around the outside of the hatch. All the water is coming down into the boat, down into the scuppers. You can see right here, if water gets in this little hatch here, it'll flow out the back down to your scuppers. If water gets in your gear track, it's not going to sit back here. It's going to come down and flow down to your scuppers as well. There's only a couple places they didn't do that right here. If water gets down here, it's just going to sit there until you get it out. But they tried to do their best. I think they did a pretty good job on that. Also, what you got on both sides is, I believe they're called Quickdraws. And so you can basically put your rod in here. I talked about it a little bit earlier. And it'll hold into your rod tip holder. So those are on both sides. Not really great on this side because I believe it's going to get in your handle a lot. But on the other side, potentially, if you don't run a ton of stuff in your gear tracks here, you can run your quick draw here. So you can kind of stage it up. But once again, there's going to be a lot of stuff in the way for me in order for me to get a rod that runs from there all the way down here, because I run quite a bit of equipment and stuff. Not so much on my right side, but I run all my equipment a lot of sides on my left side because I like to land fish on my right side because I'm right-handed. All right, I'm going to flip this thing over and show you the bottom. There's a few more features I want to show you. All right, that was a bit heavy to turn over. And keep in mind, if you ever turn this over, your part of the kayak is going to be sitting on the ground is going to be your rudder control, so keep that in mind so you don't just over on the concrete, because all that weight's going to be sitting on this. You could potentially break it. But on the back side, what we have here is some skid plates. I mean, the skid plates are fine here if you're picking up your kayak from the front and kind of moving it incidentally, but I would never be dragging my $3,100 kayak on the concrete. And as you can see here, kind of a a design miss because there is quite the gap in between these skid plates. It's not a big deal, it's on the bottom of the kayak, but stuff like that kind of drives me crazy. You can see on the back side, this thing goes up and down the handle, and you can see on the bottom, there's rubber down here as well, which is kind of good. And this is solid. This one doesn't move like the front one, and being that it kicks out a couple more inches, that's not included in the 12 foot 7 inches because you can flip that down. This is kind of the spring blade I was talking about. I was watching some videos and I know you can loosen, there it is, you can loosen and tighten the spring. So I'll probably tighten that spring. If you see that this thing is dropping really slow, tighten the spring right there and it'll drop a lot faster. All right, as you move down the kayak, of course you got your scupper holes right here. As you can see, the hole, the deck's pretty shallow there. Not a big deal for me, but like I said earlier in the video, if you don't run scuppers, since the deck is so shallow, you're gonna get water up there. All right, moving down, this is of course where your motor comes in, and over here is where the wires come in, kind of move back, and there's actually a transducer puck here that sits here, and you can hook your transducer up to it. Mine is off right now, and it's up over my workbench because I'm getting ready to work on that, and so I'm gonna be upgrading that in a bit. Here's the one thing I have not seen a kayak fishing company do, because right here is going to be where your kayak takes the brunt of everything. So I have another video out there of how to create a kind of a DIY Kydex Keel Guard, but I would love to see a company create one. And I mean, it doesn't even have to be, I mean, these things are beefy anyways. I know the plastic around the front here is going to be able to protect a whole lot more than other places in the hull, but wouldn't it be awesome if you could have maybe an upgrade piece where there's like some indents right here and right here where you can clip on a piece of Kydex, and maybe you have a different color that ran from here to here. Man, that would just be awesome if someone really just would think through that a little bit instead of just kind of being bare, because it's not easy to adhere things to polyethylene. So to have some clip inserts, a pressure clip insert, if I push down it clipped in, and I mean, I know that Kydex has a Rockwell hardness of 90, and this is just gonna scratch the pieces. It already is a little bit just sitting on the concrete. So I'm gonna probably have to do another DIY Keel Guard with Kydex. I already have a video of it, but I'll probably do another one for this one, being that the design's going to be a little bit different. And man, this is a really tight curve that you have to run that Kydex over. So once again, stay tuned. I'll be doing some upgrades on this P127. All right, there you have it, folks. My thoughts on the P127, and I love to hear your thoughts as well. One of my promises to the community is that if you take time to write me, I will write you back. So go ahead, throw your thoughts, throw your questions down in the comments below, and we'll get some great conversations starting there. And if you're just getting into kayak fishing, guys, I got the video for you. 9 kayak fishing mistakes I made and you should avoid right there.